Um, so about a good year ago, almost on the 17th of March last year, we did a very similar webinar on the same subject. And obviously we hadn't planned that. We were all taken by surprise by the Russian invasion and attempted coup in Ukraine. The war, as you know, let's say the last chapter of the war was 3 weeks old at the time when we did this webinar. I was certainly still in a state of disbelief and shock, I can say, that something like this can happen. Some people who may know Russia a little better may have, seen this coming. I certainly did not, and it was a complete new situation for all of us. I think it's fair to say. So we heard from you guys how you were doing at the time, and now 1 year has passed already. Time is flying, even in times of war, I feel. So we thought it would be a good moment to check in with you and do this again publicly. We haven't spoken publicly since then. So with that, I'm very grateful for your time. And I would like to hear about your personal situation tonight, how you're doing, where you are, how your professional work life has developed in the last year. And then we'll also would be curious to hear your expert opinions on how this war is affecting both people and communities, as well as nature and the environment. With that, without further ado, let's get started. I'll start with Bogdan, if I may, and I'll ask you, Bogdan, where are you right now, and how are you doing?
Thank you, Tilman. I am right now is in Kiev. However, I am from Lviv, and I am on field mission, and we are working with American company on remediation of the and restoration of habitats. So it's some kind of contribution which we already can make on the land, which is completely free and now going to be restored from the war. I can generally say this was everything like the state of shock and nothing to say about it. It's I knew by all the many signs it will be war, but you never can really believe it. It's and you completely not prepared. We even did not want it to prepare. Even logically, if you know something will happen, you must be prepared, but you refuse to be prepared. So everything we've been done at the first day, actually, when everything happened. So that how our brain was working, because we really even we knew, but we emotionally don't believe that horror could happen.
Sure.
So all members of my family, they stayed in Ukraine, and we just been moving from Lviv to our mountain house. It's 100 kilometers to the west in the Carpathian. So this, especially for the period of active bombing, or very risky. So we've been able to take even grandson and going there to have more shelter situation. And in September, my son, he's 17 years old. He left for Austria to study electronic music, because it's really difficult for youngsters to study. It's very challenging to do this. And I would not believe it's his age, 17, 16 years old. Many of them are abroad now. And it's funny, they had a friends meeting. They have a friends meeting in Vienna. So, and during this friends meeting, they've been going to museum, galleries. So that's a new generation, which I'm very happy of. So I think also war changed them completely. So this war is making different altitudes. Mostly it's negative, but something exists which changing people, and many of them also in a positive way. We actually been in a situation when we've got no choice. We have, or if Russia be concentration camp, or killed or collaboration with Russia. So, and we've got fourth choice. We just got to fight, to support, volunteer, to support our military, and that is how it should be for our choice.
Thank you. Let's hear from Natalia. And I know you have already, you've also prepared a presentation for us, which we'll see in a while, but let's just get, you know, a personal impression of what does your life look like right now? What's your situation?
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see all of you today. My name is Natalia and I am from Uzhhorod. I am working in the Institute of Ecological and Religious Studies. And during this year, we have a lot of changes, personal changes, professional changes. The war change our life and our works and activities. It's from the first days of war, it was very difficult to organize ourselves and to plan our further activities, what to do, how to organize the work, and what will happen next. But we know that we have no opportunity and no another chances. We should do our best and to do everything that we can for the all Ukrainian victory. And in our work, we focus on the eco-educational activities with children, because they suffer very much. They have bad feelings, they have worries, they have negative impressions because all of the situations, and it is very important and it's necessary first of all, to organize such activities for them, because eco-educational activities, they are not only with the aim to learn something, but it's also recreational aim. So when children learning something about nature in the field of nature, in the forest or in the fields, they feel better, they have nice experience, and it helps them to forget for a little about the war. Especially, it's very important for the children of internally displaced persons. There are many of them in Transcarpathia, and we tried to involve such children to our activities and to make for them such recreational and educational workshops, activities, bird watching trips, excursions, and so on.
And I know you'll give us a few impressions of what that looks like. I remember a year ago you were saying that thousands of internally displaced children were moving to Uzhhorod, to the relatively safe southwest. I can imagine that this is still an issue for you. Ivan, you're also in Uzhhorod, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's correct. That's a really nice question that I would like. It was really a shock in the beginning, and also during the first months, it was a big shock that one of my colleagues from NABU also said that Europe would not be the same, world would not be the same. So the 24th of February, after the full-scale invasion of Russia. And after 2-3 months, me and my surrounding, we did manage to, let's name it like that, take ourselves in our hands and actively support not only the military, but also the local communities that we have here, with volunteering and supplying them with all the necessary goods that they needed. Our organization, we have 3 partners in Ukraine that after the war has started on a full scale, we contacted them and we started to support them from the first days of the war. Differently, it was institutional help, it was project related help. And I think in this period of time, we did manage to achieve really good results, which we can discuss and show later on.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I remember as well that the flexibility, let's say, or that was necessary on your end to deal with this new situation. You very quickly had to find ways of redirecting the purpose of your organizations as well, whereas it was always nature conservation before the war. Humanitarian issues became obviously came into focus, and even territorial defense. Bogdan, I remember you talking about this and the way you organized logistics for people in Eastern Ukraine, and very let's say pragmatically redirected your efforts. So how is this going for you, Bogdan, now? Is this still what you do in everyday life at the Danube Carpathian program, or are you back to a routine? What does your work day look like now?
So it was slowly we are getting back to the normal like before the war in some way, but all this process was going quite differently. So from the 100% being involved in volunteer and support of army, slowly this process was slowly reducing. But at the beginning, everything was like this. The war started and all projects been frozen of our work.
Yeah.
I can say more without telling who exactly. EU donors said to us, I had personal meeting with several, they said, your country already almost not existed and let's shut down the projects. So it was a time when we trying too hard to convince them, let's just to freeze them, not completely everything closed, because I said we can reconsider in the May. So our military was the best who helped to reconsider that and convince the donor to support. So, and my team was amazing. I would say all stayed in Ukraine, just communicator with the child moved to Italy and Bulgaria and then return. My deputy in the team, he joined territorial defense and he's still going regularly. He's training soldiers for that. So, and we needed to support him very much during that period until we've been able to do this. As territorial defense usually not getting money, except they are only in a war zone getting charged. So we've been doing, started to volunteer to support refugees and army, and it was first refugee support in hospital, but after we changed to army support. I completely know many ecological NGO got in statute, don't donate money for the war, and it's against the policy. But that situation is really exceptional situation because in Ukraine, supporting our army is the only way to save the nature. Because this war is about resources. You would not believe everywhere when Russians coming, everything is stolen. Just from simple things to destroying nature. Because seems to me they are completely oriented like from Russian soldiers until Russian oligarchs, what other country will be divided and on pieces and everyone will get the pie. So when I see, I was funny because I know many items, for example, in Chernobyl exclusion zone, when it's a biosphere reserve got the office, and it's just been taken everything. Even they have buses which 2 years been not operational, but they took everything from there. So it's just really guys came with guns to grab everything and to run away. So it reminds our 12th century Mongolian Genghis Khan invasion in some way, because it's behaved exactly in the same way. It does not matter century being changed. So we've been contributing a lot of getting, and I would say Eurosite network played a very important role to donation money. So we've been able in goods and in resource in money to collect over 90,000 euro, and this all money being distributed to the soldiers, to the refugees, to the hospitals, etc. And we presented 4 public reports, which is publicly is on our Facebook page and web page, natureexpert.org. So it's major things is like 6 cars being purchased and repaired, equipment, medical, technical supply, very special equipment for the our troops. So it's very different. But now
you make this sound like it's almost a new normalcy for you.
Yeah, you know, when you're doing something, it's getting at certain period getting normal. But after, but during all this period, everything was slowly, money was decreasing, because during the first months was the most active and people been very sincere and was giving. Sure. But after it's normally, it's just normal behavior. So donation now almost dried, and voice continues. So we definitely will in the future ask again for another, because until war is over, maybe we should still keep this running. And I'm keeping this number of the volunteers who is delivering all this stuff into the war zone. So I am each time everything convinced, everything is delivered to the trenches of the soldiers. But meantime, when it came to the summer, we started to running a restoration project. What, for example, because Carpathians, they are safe. Okay, some explosions happen, but usually it's very safe and nice area, mountains. So we've been doing a restoration project for forest with Hust Forest Enterprises, restoring number of habitats, and then for ecological corridors on for supporting large carnivores on the border with Romania, and then Narcissus Valley restoration measure. We are doing a major project on restoration, wet meadow habitat. It's very challenging, especially when very strong heat and very low precipitation. So that is going, but it's going well. So then during civil society rights, you know, war always limited all our rights. We don't have access to many information. Our opinion is not considered. And you need to write and to convince our civil society voice need to be accounted and need to be strong. Another point, it's fighting suspicious corruption cases on different level. One of the largest is the Svidovets case on illegal land use for biodiversity hotspots. And the last story, which is started actually quite recently, it's working with American company Central Court Global to restore habitats. It's like cleaning water, soil affected by war in Kyiv region with using innovation technology such as biodomes, composting, remediation, etc. So it's really restoring something semi-natural habitats, which also very much used for recreation purposes of people, because war is creating a lot of damages. We wanted people to get back. So the area of their recreation need to be also in good state, because it's very important. Majority of our people should return from European Union back.
Right.
So yeah, please.
If I may, what you're describing to me is almost like a schizophrenic situation, where on the one hand you have the war raging mostly in the east, despite the the terrorist bombardments of cities and infrastructure all over the country. This is mostly happening, the land war, let's say, in the east, and you have all the environmental and humanitarian issues related to that. At the same time, you are busy working on your conservation projects in the West, which seem to be less affected by the war. So, you know, this parallel realities, so to speak, they are extraordinary to me. I think maybe it will help us to hear a bit about the actual work that Natalia is doing in her project, to understand how you integrate these two realities, so to speak. And then I would love to be able to, you know, hear your opinion about what the destruction of the war means for in those places where the war is happening, or let's say takes place in its strongest form. Whether you already said you start cleaning up sites and you're remediating contaminated areas to get people back into those regions as well. But let's take a look at Natalia's impressions from her project first, and then we'll come back to the question of how the war affects the territory. Okay. And by the way, to everyone in the audience, you're free to intervene with comments or questions as they arise. Don't be shy to write them down or raise your hand if you have a question. We want to make this as interactive and free-flowing as possible. Over to you, Natalia.
Thank you very much. First of all, who we are and where we are. Institute of Ecological and Religious Studies is a Ukrainian NGO established more than 10 years ago in Uzhhorod, in Transcarpathian region. We have more than 10 years experience of implementation international projects with the support of Ludwig Maximilian University, NABU, Federal Foreign Office of Germany, EU Commission. And our mission as organization is to involve the church as the social institution in formation of a responsible attitude towards the creation nature, implementing eco-educational activities, and formation appropriate behavior towards the environment. And we are located in Transcarpathia. It's the most western and relative safe region in Ukraine right now. Our region hosted about 500,000 IDPs, and half of them are children. And from the first days of the war, our team joined the volunteer work. And then we started to focus on organization and holding of eco-educational activities for children, especially for IDPs children, as we feel that they need they need special attention from our side, because eco-educational activities have adaptive and recreational functions, and it's very necessary for children who experiences the war consequences. Unfortunately, we have new work conditions, during air alarms and blackouts. Because of prolonged and frequent alarms, we have to reschedule a lot of activities and plan them for another days and another hours. And also when with the onset of the autumn cold season and attacks by Russia on critical infrastructures, we have problems with electricity supply through whole Ukraine, and it also complicated our work and the organization of our activities, because without light, heat, and the internet, it was very hard and difficult to organize the events and activities for children. We started to organize events and activities for children in bomb shelters, because for them it's very difficult to stay in a bomb shelter for a long period of time. And such eco-educational activities, workshops, and games can reduce the level of stress and tension, and kids can have fun. But still, during this 1 year of full-scale war, our team managed to organize about 340 activities for more than 6,000 children, a large part of whom are children of IDPs. During our workshops and activities, kids, together with our experts, created installed bed boxes, nests, and feeders for birds. They cooked aroma soap, aroma cans, and they colored eco bags. We have organized excursions in Transcarpathia, bird watching trips. And Transcarpathia is a special region because here a lot of nationalities live together, and a special community for our society, for our region, are Roma communities. And we are also organizing events for them and prepare materials on eco-education. Also, during this year, we prepared a lot of interesting materials for children. Here you can see a fairy tale about bats. First, we have published it in 2020 with the support of NABU and VHP Foundation. And last year, we have translated it into Romanian, Hungarian, and Roma languages and spread it among our communities in the region. But then we had a very nice idea and to create a performance with Transcarpathian puppet theater Bauka. Based on this fairy tale, we prepared performance Adventures of Kozak and Letik. Kozak and Letik are the Bats brothers, and it's very lovely history about their adventures. And kids in kindergartens and schools like to see this, like to attend this performance. Also, we have prepared exhibitions about Carpathian birds. This exhibition is consists of 10 info stands, which contains information about Carpathian birds, and this exhibition is already presented in 10 educational establishments of Uzhhorod. Together with the exhibitions, we prepared posters about Carpathian birds. And prepared a set of methodical games. It's about plants and animal world, plants, about birds, and about mushrooms. And we spread all these materials among teachers, among educators, and they can use them during their classes, activities, and their work with children. Also here you can see a set of materials which we have prepared for the classes on the themes of birds, bats, and waste sorting. And this is a very interesting coloring books, Adventures of Stepan in Kvadratlandia. We also have prepared it in 4 languages, in Ukrainian, Hungarian, Romanian, and Roma languages. And it's very popular among children because it's prepared in the very famous and popular style, Minecraft, and they are very happy to have such coloring books, and they can not only have fun, but also to find a very useful information about the waste sorting. Together with the coloring book, we prepared a board game Sortsmith. It promotes the formation of waste sorting skills in both children and adults. And here you can see the special agent Sortsmith, who can teach children how to sort wastes. Children like to play these games, and it's also very popular among our communities and among our teachers and tutors. So it's like working photos from the process of preparation, the game. Besides, we have prepared a few manuals. It's a methodological handbook, EcoQuest as an effective, innovative learning technology, manual investigation, protection, and attraction of bats in cycle architecture, and also fairy tale about owls. Also, we have prepared info stands on waste sorting for schools and kindergartens of Transcarpathia. And we also organized and held very interesting children contest. Let's save nature in the days of war. And we received more than 300 children's work from all over Ukraine. It contains essays, poems, drawings, applications, such lovely bags. With these works, children express their love to Ukraine and nature. And we use these works to organize exhibitions. So one of them is in Transcarpathian Regional Museum of Local Lore, and also photos of our drawings that are presented in the Japan in Matsumoto. And here you can see also photos from these exhibitions. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for giving us some impressions of your work over the last year. It's hugely relevant what you're doing, and you said 500,000 refugees have been in your region. Did I get
yes,
this?
exactly.
50,000 kids.
Our region is located on the EU borders, so many IDPs are going through Transcarpathia, and many of them were stayed in Transcarpathia. So by different data information from the official sources, during this year, Transcarpathia hosted among 500,000 of refugees. And on the first months of war, it was really very, very difficult to find apartment in Transcarpathia. So every houses, flats, they were rented by IDPs, and really in Transcarpathia was very much
internally displaced people.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just repeating this for myself. Okay, with that, I think we can start going to some of the questions from the audience as they're coming in through the Q&A. I'll just read the first one out, which is more a comment than a question, but I think it's important because it kind of reflects the overall sentiment I think that many viewers have. There's a general concern about what is happening in Ukraine, not only from the military and political point of view, but also from the environmental and toxicological perspective, implying sanitary and long-term quality of food, waters, natural resources. When we see the spread of arms, missiles thrown from agricultural fields or into, or when we see the bombs falling wherever, spreading the toxic load and pollutants, we cannot hide our indignation and our worries. How will the quality of what will be grown on this field? We still have minefields and unexploded bombs from the Second World War. I suppose this is European speaking here. And it's almost 1 century ago now, this war. So what will be the consequences of this war and other similar wars throughout the world? How can we comply with the respect for future generations when we spread these toxic elements and degrade the environment, destroy and burn the best that we have and leave only ruins? So this is the sentiment, I guess, of, you know, the desperation you can get when you see those images of war that are spread in the news and social media. How do you perceive this in Ukraine? Is this something you address when you talk to friends or colleagues? How you will deal with the effects of the aftermath? Ivan, you want to say something to that?
Yes, definitely. So that is a really nice comment, a really good question. So what Ukrainians are already doing, they are collecting the evidence of the environmental crimes that were made by Russia. So till now, as I'm not mistaken, there was more than 2,000 500 more cases registered. And hopefully after the war will end, Ukrainians will sue the Russia to get the money to be able to restore all of it. No one can say exactly what damages now are done to Ukrainian nature, because most of the territories that were occupied, we don't have any access there. The part that were deoccupied, there was loads of damages and a lot of destroyed biotopes that would need to be also in the future restored. And for now on, it is really hard to say, because the war is now not over, and there are still occupied territories and active hostilities going on. And each day, this amount of these ecocides, these environmental crimes, is growing rapidly.
Yeah, and I know there's a program where I think NGOs can report environmental crimes to the Ministry for the Environment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's true. There is the local NGO called Ecodia, and they created such app. Not only NGOs, but also people, local communities, they can also report such ecocides.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a new role for you, or something that has become more important than in the past. NGOs are always also the watchdog, let's say, and they kind of hold people or politicians accountable in public institutions, and document these kind of environmental crimes. But in this case, we are talking about the time after the end of the war, when there will be hopefully a time of accountability and criminal persecution for the crimes that have been committed, not only against people but also against nature. Bogdan, you were saying that wherever territories in Ukraine were deoccupied, you found that Russians had stolen natural resources in a way, or they had been destroyed. So how is the NGO community working right now in Ukraine? You were saying, military times or times of war are, create exceptions, so to speak. It makes life probably more difficult also from, for civil society. Can you say something about how you perceive the work of conservation NGOs and the conservation community in Ukraine right now?
I would say about situation is very different in different. War is definitely making a reflection, a footprint on all our society, on our people. But in general, its distance, if you take distance from European Union border to the war zone, behavior of the people changing, most closer to the war, more activity linked to the war. And it's very different. Also, people react to the war very differently. Some of them, because of children reaction, is moving on another continent and they are staying. I just spoken with my friends from the island, and near Dublin, in the small villages, is a lot of Ukrainians, and they are just staying there. So Ukraine just occupied completely, pushed to get of the country about more than 8 million at least. And they are now like seeds all over the Europe and in America and beyond. So that makes, but also war makes a lot of influences. People adapting to the war, and war changes many people behavior and even understanding what's going on. I remember
last year you were talking about the overwhelming feeling of solidarity in society, that everyone felt like this is the moment where we have to stick together. The optimism despite the outbreak of the war, that, you know, I don't know, more than 80% were feeling we will win the war, and we can do this together. And is this still the overall sentiment in Ukraine, or has this changed?
Absolutely, it's exactly nothing changed. You could be surprised. This sign was somewhere in the summer, and it's I would say maybe even a few percent even was increased, because we are pushing enemy out. People more optimistic. We are still surviving and keeping. Many people getting definitely. We are losing the best people during the battle, and that is a huge loss. But at the same time, new potential in young people. I have seen many 20, 35 years old who went through the bombardment, who went through the death of children, what they see. They get stronger and patriotic. They started to value country and life. So war make them really citizens in many ways. Even before the war, they've been completely different, but now they started to be very active part of society. And also volunteers movement, it's a really amazing story. We just small, from collecting garbage in the Carpathians until bringing supplies to the war zone. So people trying to donate to rebuild. I can say very funny story, but for example, Irpin city was already recovered. It's the official confirmation by 70% from this occupation. But at the same time, prosecutor from EU, who is now in Ukraine, and they are checking, and they are telling, oh, you are too fast rebuilding. We are not enough recording everything, because this, you would amaze, in Irpin, I have seen many buildings which been just destroyed, and they are already removed, and it will be a new building on this place built completely. So country is recovering, and maybe this is the best what we can do in our genes over the last 300 years fighting with Russians, just to recover after we suffer. So I think I'm very optimistic, and people very optimistic what we will prevail and we will win. And our existence, it's already a win. So we are very, I think it's very positive. Everything is going for the moment.
Thank you. And I see Natalia and Ivan nodding to this. So, or would like to comment. Otherwise, I'll ask a question that was addressed to Natalia, which is, did you receive or have you tried to get any EU funding from the EU Youth and Culture programs for your work with children? So this is a very specific question. Maybe we can broaden it a bit also by saying, you know, how has the EU been helping in your work, and what are you missing?
Our work is supported very strong by NABU this year, and thanks to this institutional and project support, we have the possibility to organize these events for children, and to prepare all these materials, and to organize this all contents, and organize the whole activity of our organization.
Okay, so support through your sister NGOs, let's say in Germany and other places, but no EU funding directly for your work.
We have a project.
I'm not familiar with it myself, but.
No. We have from transborder support from transborder program from Huskroye. We have a project. It was for 2 years. It's about protecting beds. It was frozen for the half of a year because of war, and then the situation was changed and we have a possibility to finish it and then complete the tasks. And this project also contains a set of eco-educational workshops for children and youth. In such a way, we have support from the EU Commission, but this project started before the war.
Yeah, I see.
Still was done.
So here's another question from Matthias Pommer, who, by the way, is an ex-Eurosite staff. He's writing as part of his question. Welcome, Matthias. Good to have you here. His question is maybe a bit sensitive, but I'll ask it to you anyway. How did the war affect your personal and working relationships with Russian colleagues? Was the communication cut entirely? What was their reaction to the war? He's assuming that you did have some working or communication relationships with Russian colleagues before the war. He's saying if that's not the case, just ignore the question. But yeah, what does that look like?
Yes, as you may know, I would like to elaborate on this question. I am also not only coordinating projects in Eastern Europe, but also we have several projects and a lot of partners in Central Asia. Yeah, regarding the attitude for Central Asian countries and our local partners, they are on the side of Ukraine. They support Ukrainian people, and their position is totally different from the governmental level. So if, for example, in Central Asia, almost all the country, they are neutral to the Ukrainian-Russian war, and they don't vote, for example, on UN votings. Then the local level, so local people, local NGOs, they all stand by Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Regarding, they also try to support Ukraine with different means, even if it's far, far away, central. Let's name it like that.
Thank you, Ivan. Natalia, do you have anything to add to that? Is this still possible to have contacts with Russian colleagues, or has the war ended that for you? What's your feeling about this?
Very difficult question. We hadn't before war very strong connections with Russians, NGOs and Russian colleagues, and when it started, it's hard to imagine how to communicate further and how to work after the war. So,
okay,
I think we are not ready even to think about it.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. All right, let's move on to another issue. Last year, you were saying, surprisingly, this war is mostly taking place in cities or near cities, because that was like the military aim of Russia was to conquer the most important cities of Ukraine and kind of, you know, by that occupy the whole country. Is this still how you would characterize what's happening, or is this now a war more that also affects, let's say, the broader countryside in Eastern Ukraine? That's my personal question that I'm curious to hear your opinion about that, and maybe I can connect it to a question from the audience by Anton, who's writing, with a rather static front line that we've been seeing lately, there are long linear tracts of land that will be saturated with unexploded munitions and bomb craters. And we all know these images from social media and so forth. So removing them will be dangerous and difficult and expensive. So would it not be interesting to leave this land to nature in the future and to natural succession? Given that, as we know from military training areas, those can be, these kind of scars of the war can create conditions for endangered species or special habitats. Is that something that is already in your mind, or is this too early to think about what will happen with this land? Yeah, so how is the war affecting the countryside? How is the war affecting nature outside of cities? And what do you think should be done in the future with these affected sites?
I guess besides economical and social destruction, we have huge environmental destruction, and this was already confirmed. Even now it's calculating how much. So I guess after the war, everything will be much better written and analyzed about it. But up to now, we have a couple of the even national park, which is destroyed very strongly. One of the is Sveti Gore National Park. So exists, when we spoken, this was situation when battles was going along roads. Russians been very relaxed, and they've been making an huge lines, and this line been easily to touch it. Now it's very rare happen something like this, and they've been using in some areas just destroying land completely, everything. So with the huge ammunition, they are just making a land completely destroyed. So a number of the protected area just completely demolished. For the moment, we cannot even say how that will recover. Definitely nature is recovering. Nature very resilient. It's the main things human understand. Nature can defend people, and they done during this. So many rivers, wetlands done their job. Very much, but it's still many years. It's not about the only trenches or huge destroyed landscape parts, but we still will be facing about the mines, and this is something which will go over the years and years. I'm suspecting up to 30 years until we properly clean up. And the most important challenges will be not agricultural field. Agricultural field will be cleaned very quickly. For agricultural field, small shrapnel will be the most difficult, because they are destroying the this agricultural equipment. So that would need a certain challenge and maintenance problem. But nature will suffer from the mines, because nowadays new mines, they are not with iron, so you can detect with special equipment. They are connected with plastic, and they're distributed over landscape by special cassette loading. So they are distributed like one grad system can just cover several hectares completely. So you cannot find them. They are just inside of the soil and between grass under the some pieces of wood, and they are waiting. Someone will step on them. So that is something extremely challenging for the future, and animals will part-time step on it, and they will protect people with that, because otherwise human will step on this. War is making a lot of carnivores part of the ecosystem much larger, because it's a plenty of food. You know, it's wild dogs, wolves, and others. It's plenty of them because of that bodies around laying, and that is beneficial for animals in this case. So this certain will be still this dynamic. On one side, many wilderness area, which is providing a lot of biodiversity, and at the same time, this biodiversity will step on mines. And for human, many areas I can see near Kiev, even I just been visiting a few days ago, Bucha and around, especially Makariv. So it's not far from main road with Kiev. On roadside, they still have signs not to step because of mines. So not many areas. So agricultural fields, the first cleaned, and it's most easy to clean. But all the rest, nature, landscape is most difficult, and it will be for many, many years, and it will be very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a generational challenge that will remain with Ukrainian people after the war. And I mean, just knowing, I grew up in Berlin, which was, as you know, heavily destroyed during the Second World War. And even nowadays, 70, 80 years later, whenever you build a house somewhere and you dig out the soil, you know, they find unexploded bombs from that time, and everything has to stop. And so this is like, yeah, an eternal heritage almost. Let's go back to the questions. We are nearing the hour mark, or we're just hitting it. It's 7 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock yours. But I think we can go on a little longer. I have 3 questions left in the Q&A list, and a comment by Matthias in reaction to his first question about the relationship with the Russian colleagues. So let me read out his comment first, because it relates to what he was asking earlier. He's saying, thank you very much for the answers. I'm sorry, I did not mean to provoke any hard feelings. I've just worked both in Ukraine and Russia in conservation projects with excellent people. And it's just a shame what the Russian government is doing. Apart from the killing and destruction and crimes against Ukraine, they push away their best normal people from the rest of the world. But we are with you, and Ukraine will win. So, and I'm sorry, he said this comment is not for the public, and I just read it out. I apologize, Matthias. I didn't read it entirely before I read it out. So now it's out in the public, but I think we can all agree with the sentiment. I certainly do. So with that, I would like to turn to a question from Kazimir Rabski, our dear Eurosite member in Poland, from the Society for the Protection of the Coast. He also asked about the national parks in Ukraine and how they are being affected. He said that up to 10 national parks have been destroyed. If that is true, do you know anything about the scale of destruction in the national parks? Bogdan, you were mentioning one, but please enlighten us if you've heard of how the situation is in the national parks of Ukraine.
No, I just can confirm situation is in few parks is a really difficult situation, but it's not like 10. Exists certain influence, but exists some park which is really like steppe reserve. So they are not really, they are most easy to recover. So, and nature is usually resilient. So I think some of them will need very much special restoration measures and big attention and many long years to recovery. Especially this one, which been linked with many recreation activities, and they've been very important for national people recreation. But I would say it's not like completely like 10 been destroyed. And this data what we have, they it's too many, so it's really destroyed just few. I would say 3, probably 4, which is really need a lot of work, and all the rest just have fragmented, but they will recover. The big influence exists on forest. So forest ecosystem is quite destroyed, but again, the same time, like after the fire, many things are recovering. But because it was like plantations, and they need recovering and special again replantation. So it's not like natural habitats they can require by themselves. They need special plantation and measures and additional resources on it.
I mean, I see the background of you, Bogdan, and Ivans is showing us forests, pine forests, and I know Ivan, you work in a region that is forested in the Carpathian. 1 year ago, you were saying, you know, the war might lead to loosening of protection regimes in those forests. The Ukrainian state may feel tempted to harvest trees that usually would be protected because of the extraordinary situation. Can you say something about the situation of the forests, Ivan?
Yes. So regarding the project that we were doing, that was a restoration project in Carpathian Mountains, which, by the way, was successfully finished during the war. We finished this project in September 2022, and regarding the forests and protected areas overall. So Russians, they are breaking a lot of international laws, and they are using the natural reserves and also the protected areas as their military bases. Mm-hmm. Also, regarding the forests, it is in some district, it is really damaged. Not only because of the shelling with missiles and forest fires, but also because of usage of the wood for making the trenches or soldiers. And yes, it is as I say, we cannot name some kind of figures because it is constantly going on. So today the figure can be one, and tomorrow it can be totally different. And the same with the situation in the protected areas. Really unique places are now under the occupation of Russians, and what's going on there, we cannot say. Regarding the places that are really close to the war zone, we also have started with our partner a project that was also the territory of it was also damaged by the war hostilities. So now NABU has a project in the Mykolaiv region in Elanitsky steppe, where we restore a bison enclosure, which was damaged by the hostilities. It's a 60-hectare enclosure, and this project also has on the aim to not only restore the enclosure, but also to purchase and transport 2 male bison to improve the genetic structure of the herd. So it's really hard to implement such projects now during the war because of many factors, because of the possibility that missile will come there anytime, because of people are also scary. For example, now we have a problem for searching for a partner that will do the new enclosure, so the net, because lack of workers, most of them, or in the military or went abroad. So yeah, it is really, really hard to start such projects, to find fundings for such projects that are not, let's name it, stable, and to also coordinate them from the partner side, because you never know what comes tomorrow.
Yeah. I know we quickly, shortly spoke before we started the webinar. Ivan, you said you wanted to share a few words about the situation of our BirdLife partner, Ukrainian Society for the Protection of Birds, and speak on their behalf a little bit how they are doing. Last year, Yulia Bondarenko was joining us in this webinar. She can't be with us today, unfortunately, but maybe you can say a few words about how USPB is doing.
So as I've mentioned before, from the beginning of the war, we have started fundraising and for our partners, and did manage to fundraise a big amount that was used also for the continuation of projects for the special needs of the project that appeared during the war. And as you may seen, Julia, which is now also in Poland, she left Ukraine on the beginning of the war, and she now is accepted by one of our BirdLife family partner from Poland. So OTOP is hosting her and helping her out. The two more members of Ukrainian Society for Protection of Birds are also abroad, but the core staff, they stayed in Ukraine. They also try to continue implementing all the projects that they had. Some of the big projects that they started was also frozen, and for now on there is no possibility to implement it, because part of this project was also on the occupied for now territory. But overall, as I think that everything will be okay, and as Bogdan also mentioned before, Ukrainians are really stubborn. So for sure, each project that will be implemented will be with the possibility implemented till the end. And I'm really grateful for BirdLife and for all the donors that helped us to support our Ukrainian partners in such a difficult period of time. That was a really great help to keep it on the flow, to at the beginning to make people, let's name it also in some cases, survive. And in such case, I am really glad that we are now able to sit here to have a conversation year after. And yeah, all of it is thanks to the Ukrainian military forces that let us still be here and do a nice project for nature conservation.
Okay, thank you. Well, we certainly want to continue in that spirit of solidarity, and we'll make us, sure that our umbrella organizations, BirdLife and Eurocide and so forth, continue to support you in any way we can. So on that note, I think with an eye to the time, we have to conclude. I'd like to ask one more question from the audience to Natalia, which is kind of giving us an optimistic outlook, maybe. Well, here it goes. It's from Andrew Scranton. He's writing, amidst all the challenges and ongoing uncertainties, there are seeds of opportunity and seeds of innovation for a greener future for all of Ukraine. This also presents lessons for other places in the world, which are also under duress or in conflicts. What does the panel, and I'll limit the answer to you, Natalia, now, think are the opportunities to build back better Ukraine for nature and society, where the conflict might lead to new and good ways of environmental work in Ukraine that might even not have been possible in the past? Natalia.
Yes, it's perfectly true. Ukrainians now are strong enough to win this war and to build our country safe, flourishing, and greener for our children and the future generations. Without doubts, we have all possibility to prepare better life for our kids and our children. And with all innovations and with our flexibility and with our new strong sites, we are able to do this.
Okay. Happy to hear that. With that, we are coming to an end. Thank you so much for your time, Natalia, Bogdan, Ivan. It's been a pleasure seeing you again and talking to you. Very interesting. And I wish you all the best in your endeavors. And we'll speak again soon, hopefully, and hopefully in better times. With that, thank you to the audience for your stamina and your curiosity. Thank you to the Eurosite team, the technical support who made this webinar possible today, Jennifer, Alexander, and Caroline Frühoff. If you're interested in Eurosite's work, go to our website or check us out on these social media platforms that you can see on the screen. And we'll soon get back to you with a new fundraising email for Bogdan's work. And we are a charitable NGO, so you can always become a member or support us, our work through donations whenever you feel like it.